Dan?
We're ready.
Okay.
Welcome everybody to Razed Typical.
I'm so excited for tonight, Dan.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be a great night. We have
it is
Dr. Temple Grandin on the show. Yeah,
she's joining us.
Yeah,
and we're very excited to have Dr. Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
We want to talk a little bit about?
So Dr. Temple Grandin got her master's in cattle, which is pretty amazing. She has an HBO Max movie about her with Claire Danes, and she is just an incredible autism woman. I've heard her speak once in Philadelphia, and I met her over movie chat, and I said, hey, want to be on my podcast? And she said, absolutely. And now here we are tonight, the star of the show. Please welcome Dr. Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to be here tonight. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very excited to have you.
Yes. So my first question is, what is your favorite type of restaurant? I love taste buds and I love eating.
Well, I like a lot of different restaurants. One of the things I really like is Texas-style barbecue.
Oh, okay.
That I really like. I like chocolate cake. That's another thing I like.
Ooh. That sounds so good.
That makes it even better.
Oh, yeah.
Those are some of the things I like.
That's amazing. I love that. You like barbecue, right, Ben?
I do. I like ribs. I don't know if you heard of Manny's Chop House. It's very, very good.
Where's that at?
In Florida. They have. Next time you go to Florida, you have to go to Manny's Chop House. They have the best ribs ever.
Okay.
There you go. There you go. And Temple, I like to ask to start, what's something that makes you angry?
Makes me angry. Abuse of animals. That's something that makes me really angry. That makes me angry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. It's something I've learned over time that it's a good way to get to know somebody is to find out what upsets them.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, in a little bit. But like Ben said, you have a movie. It's about your life. How did you feel as they were filming that?
Well, I was only there for a short part of the filming, and that was mainly to make sure that the cattle dip vat was working right. But the thing I really liked about the movie is they showed how visual thinking works. They showed exactly how my visual thinking works. I liked the fact that my drawings were in the movie and that the projects were accurate.
Wow.
Now, I'm an extreme visual thinker. In fact, I've got a new book right now titled Visual Thinking, Hidden Gifts of People Who Think in Pictures, Patterns, and Abstractions.
Wow.
I'm very concerned that some of these kids that think differently have a lot of difficulty in the educational system.
Yeah, I relate to that really strongly, Temple. I'm dyslexic, and so reading and writing have always been a challenge for me. And so much of school is reading and writing. And when I was younger, I could read at a first grade level, but I could comprehend sixth grade material. And so, that you're so right about the way the education system works.
Well, the thing where I had problems is I can't do higher math and algebra.
Sure.
That's where I have problems. But when I was out doing work in the field and we were building cattle handling facilities, I worked with very skilled metal workers that were patenting and inventing equipment that could not do algebra. But they could build and invent anything. Also, photographers I've worked with that were dyslexic, had learning problems. Yeah. But they were total visual thinkers.
Yeah. No, that's huge. And it's something too, Ben, like you've talked about, you like, what game do you like?
I like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah. And you always talked about wanting to be a roller coaster designer.
Yeah.
But we always struggle because there's so much math,
of the math.
Right?
Yeah. That's totally hard with the math and stuff.
Well, you see, that's the math. And what I've learned is there's kind of two parts of engineering. There's a lot of math in roller coaster designing. But in mechanical food processing equipment, there's not a lot of math. And I've worked with people that barely graduated from high school, and they were inventing and patenting food processing equipment. Sorry about sneezing.
No, you're fine. Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's a different kind of thinking. They just see how a mechanical device will work. And in my visual thinking book, one of the big things I talk about is that we're losing skills. Like right now for food processing equipment, you have to import a lot of that stuff from Europe now. We're paying the price for taking shop classes out.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst things the schools ever did.
Yeah.
Some schools are putting them back in.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot. In my experience, I lived in California for a brief period of time and worked for a program where we got sixth grade students, and we could teach them outdoors. So we had them for a full week, and all the science was outdoors. It was all hands-on education. Because I agree with you so strongly about that, the education piece when it comes to things like, wood shop, really hand building, all those kinds of things. We're sort of missing that piece for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we need that. I actually have a book for kids called The Outdoor Scientist.
Oh, I love that.
Outdoor Scientist, and it's got kids' projects like looking at the constellations.
That's
watching
amazing.
Satellites, looking at rocks, observing animal behavior.
Yeah.
It also profiles famous naturalists.
Oh, perfect.
Worked outside.
Yeah. That's what our job was officially called. We were called naturalists. And I'm going to send that to my boss in California, because I think she'd probably use your book.
It's called The Outdoor Scientist. It's now available in a paperback, and
it's amazing.
We've got to get kids out doing stuff, and when they get out doing stuff, they find that they like it. And when I did another book, that's my project book of little aviation experiments and parachutes, and
cool.
And
I love that.
And I did a book signing for this. I was horrified to find out that 20 to 30% of elementary school kids outside of Denver had never made a paper airplane.
What?
They had never made paper snowflakes.
Oh my gosh.
A student in my class who had never used a ruler to measure anything.
Wow.
I
That's
think that's
crazy.
a big problem.
Yeah.
Can I just say, my teacher taught me, don't be a fool, use a tool. We have tools everywhere.
Yeah, that's so true. But that's crazy to think that there are so many things that like I think are standard, but aren't. And I love that book too, because we would do all that. So we had a big thing that we had in California was banana slugs, and they're like specific to the redwoods. And so anytime that we would find one, we would, always point them out to the kids. And then we also had some animals and chickens. And, we let the kids hold the chickens and all that kind of stuff. So it's I'm all about giving those tangible experiences with lessons.
And students need that. Like in our animal science department, we have a lot of students, they get the chance to get up close and personal with cattle for the very first time.
Yeah.
And they've never done that before. Had some students out at the farm just the other day, and we have some really tame research steers. They just like to be petted. They were coming up the fence, and they were really like these big black tame cattle. That was really, they'd never gotten that close to cattle before.
Right.
And actually, they were movie students.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Ask this question, Ben?
Yeah, I can do that. So people ask me all the time, what was the learning in speech like when I was young? I didn't have a lot of memories of when I was a kid. Do you have any memories about learning to speak?
Yes, I do. And I can remember the frustration of not knowing how to talk. It was the most horrible frustration. And sometimes I'd scream, and I'd say, no, I'm going to scream now because I don't know any other way to communicate. And if the grown-ups talk too fast, the speech went into gibberish. You have to slow down when you talk to these kids. Another thing that teachers need to do is give the kid time to respond. I said it's like a phone with only one bar of service. It takes time to download the web page. You've got to give it time.
That's so good.
I love that.
That's so good. Go ahead.
It's like a phone bar, like you need that single for a minute. I picture that in my brain.
And I think too, a problem, Temple, that neurotypical experiences in a situation like this. I work with adults on the spectrum, and one of my clients, he takes a long period of time to respond, and his parents always interpret it as intentional.
No, it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's processor speed.
Yep.
And this is why multitasking can be a problem. And I want to avoid jobs such as McDonald's takeout window. That's too much multitasking.
Interesting. Yeah, that's huge. That's good to know too.
Wow.
But yeah, I've experienced that so many times with so many different people where there's a question, and then they're taking that time to respond. And I've even done it with you, Ben, where I've asked you a question and you're processing. And I need to give you more time to process.
Yeah. That's part of autism.
But then there's a lot of jobs that people on the spectrum are really good at that don't affect attention shifting. I mean, like when I'm doing design work. In fact, here's one of my drawings of one of my livestock handling facilities.
That's amazing.
I got that in focus there because all I've got is
it looks great for us.
And the way I used to sell jobs was to simply show off my drawings. I learned to sell my work, so I'd show pictures and drawings of projects. That's how I sold jobs.
Yeah.
And when I'm working on doing a design job, see, there's no multitasking. It's sort of like I just got the design program open, and I don't have to attention shift back and forth quickly between things.
Yeah. No, that's huge. And I love that you said too, I didn't realize, that the drawings in the movie were your actual drawings. Yeah. That's so cool.
Some of the were. There's that scene where they put cattle over. That actually is a drawing for a real job.
Dang. That's so cool. That's so cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we had watched it a while ago, and then we rewatched it recently. Yeah, because I wanted to see it again. Because they did it, you said it so well. They did a really good job representing the visual thinking piece.
I think that's important. It shows the visual thinking really accurately. Like there's a scene in there where a bunch of shoes just come up like this. Like a PowerPoint slides, or back in my generation, 35 millimeter Kodak carousel slides.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm really dating myself.
I do have a question. Has your movie ever been in theaters?
Probably, right?
No, it was always a TV movie.
Okay.
And that's why it wasn't eligible to go for an Oscar, because to go for an Oscar, it has to be shown in a theater. But it won all the other awards. It got Golden Globe. It got Best SAG, Screen Actors Guild, Best Actress for Claire Danes. It won just every other award.
Yeah.
And I think they just did a fabulous job with it.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking I might show that at the Water Tower Cinemas.
Yeah, you could ask.
April. Yeah, because April is Autism Awareness Month. I'm going to reach out to them. We have a local theater near our house, and I'm going to see if they'd be willing to show that movie at the theater.
They've contacted people about rights and kind of that kind of stuff before.
Well,
to make sure.
Now, if you show it in the high school auditorium, I would just go ahead and just show it.
Sure. That's good.
In a theater, they will have to through the rights channel.
Yeah, they'll reach out, and because there was one movie that you were able to help get in there, and they had to talk to the director and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, in a theater, you're going to have to go through all the rights stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll work on that.
Yeah, you can see for sure.
I just have so many ideas.
But yeah, it was
trailers. There's a lot of trailers online, and those you can show anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
How did you feel seeing someone portray you?
Well, the thing that was so weird is I went there for some of the filming, and it was sort of like going in a 60s time machine. And Claire Danes became me.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget driving over to school, and there was an NPR show where they were taking excerpts out of the movie, and then they were interviewing me. So it was going back and forth between my voice on an interview and Claire Danes, and I was mixing them up.
Yeah.
Until I recognized the lines.
Wow. That's crazy.
The way she studied to become me, I gave her all these ancient old VHS tapes.
Yeah.
In the late 80s and the early 90s. And she played these over and over and over again. And then she had a movement coach and an acting coach that worked. And then I saw her for about 4 hours, and she videotaped that whole meeting. But she became me.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job of doing 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah, that must have been so cool.
But it was sort of like going in a time machine back to the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I love VHS tapes.
Yeah, you like that time period
Oh, my
too, right?
gosh. I remember... Did I mess up a VHS tape one time?
I think maybe, but you liked that you could rewind and watch it go back.
And then go, I like the noise of it. I don't know why. Some kids with autism had perseverating thoughts. And I had a perseverating thought on a VHS tape.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that visual piece. It comes back to that, right? It's that.
Well, yeah, and I still have VHS tapes. I don't know why I'm keeping them.
Yeah, I think we made you get rid of yours, huh,
Ben? Yeah.
Didn't we?
I have Disney Plus now.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that makes you get rid of them when you got to move.
Yeah,
Oh, you
that's
know
so
what I
true.
had that got thrown out when I was 14 and we moved? I had the original big fat 1950s Superman annual, the
No
very first
way.
one. I had that in my comic book box,
Oh
and
no.
I had no idea how valuable that would have become.
Right.
And when I was 14, we moved, and the comic books were thrown in the trash.
Oh, that's tragic.
Who's your
Yep, I
favorite?
remember that really well, and I'm going, oh, I don't know what that'd be worth now. Very
Yeah.
first annual, that real big, thick one is like a good this thick.
Yeah. And
And
they're Superman too. That's an expensive one for
Yeah.
sure. That's
well, it was the
crazy.
very first one of the annuals. Before then, everything was Superman, just small comic books.
Right.
And this was the big, thick annual with the origin of Superman and done
Dang.
over again and all kinds of stuff like that. And
Oh, we have
oh,
a tragic tale from a yard sale from when we were kids. And our grandmom was watching us, and we were having a little yard sale, and mom was like, we're only putting out what we have here. Nothing else from the house is going out. And me and my older brother got a little sale crazy, and we started taking things from the house and bringing them outside. And we sold all of our Nintendo 64 games for like $5, like very much not what they were worth.
You made a big
and you were
mistake.
kicking
We did.
yourself.
Oh yeah. Even now, I'll still tease my older brother sometimes. Like, hey, remember when we sold all those games? And he's like, don't remind me.
You wish you had time. And if I had any idea in the future that Superman annual would become valuable, I would have taken it out of the box and
Right.
said, okay, throw the other comics away, but let's just keep that big Superman annual.
Right.
But that sort of thing just didn't cross my mind.
Yeah.
I
love
wanted
that.
to ask you,
This would have been mid 50s, or whenever that came out.
Wow.
That's a-
Wow.
I was
I
gonna
was
say,
a young
Go ahead.
kid.
Temple, what's your favorite superhero?
Well, I was an absolute total Superman fan.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd spend my allowance. I got 50 cents a week for allowance, and a Superman comic was a dime.
Oh man.
And I could buy 5 of those or 10 candy bars. 50
Oh
cents was worth about $5 now.
dang. That's so crazy to think about. I'd love the idea of taking 50 cents and getting some candy bars.
Well, I could get, if 50 cents in the 50s, I could buy 5 Superman comics. I could get 10 candy bars. I could get a kite and a string for 20 cents.
Dang. That's crazy to think about.
It's like the Chick-fil-A menu, the Dorf House.
Oh yeah. So Ben spoke at Chick-fil-A corporate recently and talked about autism. But they told us a fun fact. When the first restaurant was opened, they had these paper menus. And if you still have, there's only 4 left that are like stamped.
It's crazy.
And if you have one and you come to any Chick-fil-A, you can get any item that's on that menu for that price. It's like a sandwich is like 15 cents, French fries is a nickel. And so there's 4 out there somewhere still that people can occasionally bring in, and we'll get Chick-fil-A for very cheap.
Well, yeah, I can remember the other thing in the summer, this little post office store sold popsicles for 5 cents.
I love that.
And these were the kind of items that were allowance items. And Mother never bought those things. But I learned to save. If I wanted a 69-cent propeller airplane, I had to save for 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And I was learning that at 7 and 8 years old.
Yeah.
And kids are not learning these things. I was going in the store myself and buying my Superman comics.
Yeah.
And what really bothers me is we've got teenage autistic kids today, fully verbal, doing well in school, and they're so overprotected they've never gone into a store and bought something themselves.
Yeah.
They've never ordered food at a restaurant by themselves. This is ridiculous. And this is coming up over and over and over again. Not learning basic life skills.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, I went to California by myself, and I actually took an airplane, and I went through security. I went through TSA Care, shout out to them. And I did it. And I went by myself to LA, and me and my brother had a real argument saying, oh, I really want to take Ubers. I want to take public transportation. So I did the public transportation.
Yeah, we had a moment where we were talking about budget. That was a big part of this program was figuring out and staying with the budget.
Yeah.
The budget, staying on budget. That's
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And basically I said to Ben, I was like, if you take Ubers everywhere, you'll only have $2 per meal, which is impossible.
That's impossible. Yeah.
And then I said, if you take
noodles every night.
right, ramen noodles every night. Yeah. That if you take the public transportation, you'll have $25 per meal, which is doable.
That's totally doable.
Yeah. And so Ben took the buses and he was able to do it. But there were some small steps, right, Ben? When you were younger, I think mom and dad were really good about what you're saying, Temple, about giving Ben those tangible experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is you have to understand money, because I have parents say, well, their kids aren't understanding money. Well, the problem is I had to transfer. I can now tell you what 50 cents could buy things I could afford. Now, one of my favorite games, which was a Christmas present when I was 10 years old, was a table hockey set. And I remember seeing it in the toy store window, and it was $21. And I calculated that's almost a whole year's worth of allowance.
Right.
And so that's something way beyond allowance. But now I understood what $20 was. Now it'd be a $250 hockey game.
Right.
Wow.
But back then, and so $20 bill equaled a hockey table.
Right.
You see that's making money real. The other thing that was great about the hockey table, it's a game you had to play with other people.
Right.
And so when I had kids over, we did lots of table hockey, and we would put 100 marbles on the board and play marble table hockey sometimes.
I love that. But yeah, it's those small things. We say all the time that the small things during the early ages, they become big things when you grow up. Right. And so
that's just it.
Yeah.
And I have parents saying, well, my kid doesn't understand money, but having that allowance, and there were certain items like balsa wood airplanes were considered allowance items. Mother didn't buy me that 69-cent airplane. That is something I had to save for.
Right. Yeah. And then you had, you were able to attach value to that item, which teaches huge skills later on. Yeah. Huge skills. And yeah, even, for some parents who are watching, like you just said, you can even set it specifically to a certain set of items. It doesn't have to be, everything in the store, but take them in the store and say, this aisle or whatever is what we're looking at.
Or you go in the dollar store and they have $5 but there's going to be things in the dollar store they might have to save.
Sure.
And for me, it was Woolworths. They used to call it the 5 and dime.
Yes.
And it was kind of the same sort of thing. I'd buy crepe paper for my kite tails. That was 5 cents.
Yes. I love that.
Things like that. But what I was doing was converting the money to real things. You see, when I saw the hockey table in this toy store window, several years, I'd already had it for a few years.
Right.
Then it gave me a better idea of what a bigger amount of money was worth.
Sure.
And I'm realizing how important that is. And then I remember seeing an ad in the 60s where a Volkswagen Beetle was $2,000.
What?
60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That would take a lot of time to save 50 cents, right?
Well, that's right. But you see, then I'm understanding sort of the range of what different amounts of money you can buy.
Exactly.
And that's how the kids got to learn it.
Right. Yeah, we've got a lot of great people posting comments saying, Temple, thank you. You're such an inspiration. Just a lot of people are saying that you've been a big inspiration to their families.
Well, thank you. And the other thing, I got a few little tips on sensory stuff.
Yeah.
I had problems with loud noise hurting my ears. And what some families have found that works, okay, let's say the kid hates the vacuum cleaner, hates the hairdryer. One of the things that can help desensitize that is let the child turn on that hairdryer. Let the child turn on the vacuum cleaner. And this reduces the startle factor. And there's been situations where the vacuum cleaner went from the most feared thing to the favorite plaything. When the child could control the vacuum cleaner coming on. And then the other issue is headphones. And the problem is if you wear them all the time, sound sensitivity will worsen. It will make it worse. Now, what you can do is have them with you all the time. That gives you control. and then you put them on for the worst stuff, maybe the train station,
Sure.
the horrible bathrooms with all kinds of automated flushers going off.
Oh yeah.
You would put it on for that, but then take them off when you got out, but have it with you. So if some fire alarm or something like that goes off, then you can put them on because you have them with you. You see, that gives you control.
Yeah.
And that can help sometimes. It doesn't totally desensitize sound sensitivity, but I've heard of kids where they wore headphones so much that normal, quiet dinner conversation became overwhelmingly loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was caused by wearing the headphones all the time.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then that becomes so impractical, right? You just can't, can't function that way.
But you can have them with you.
Right.
You see, that gives you control.
Right.
So if something happens where there's some really dreadful noise, then you can put the headset on.
Yeah. Yeah. We have Nick who just posted a comment, and he was saying that they're loving the interview and that the movie was a huge inspiration to them. They also have a child with autism. So getting a chance to see that was huge.
Well, and I really like the fact it showed visual thinking accurately. Now, I want to emphasize that not every person with autism is a visual thinker like me.
Sure.
And I explain that in detail in my book on visual thinking.
Sure.
Another kind of autistic mind is the visual, spatial, pattern, math, and music thinker. That's a different kind of thinker than my kind of mind. My kind of mind's art and mechanical, where the mathematical thinker, it's algebra, geometry, all the things I'm terrible at, computer programming, and music. And then a third type is the word thinker. This would be the autistic kid that loves history, tell you everything about, baseball or some other favorite subject. And a lot of so-called regular people are mixtures. But what happens in autism is you can get an extreme visual thinker like me or an extreme mathematician.
Interesting.
You won't find an extreme visual thinker like me and an extreme mathematician in the same person.
Interesting.
One or the other.
Interesting. Yeah.
I love history, so I'm a big history.
Yeah, I'll say Ben's definitely falls into that word category because he can pull out the most obscure fact out of nowhere.
That's a word category. Now, let's look at jobs for the different kinds of minds.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that about 20% of skilled people that invented and built equipment for me were either autistic, dyslexic, or ADHD. And my kind of mind, skilled trades is a very good place to go, or art, or working with animals. And then the mathematical mind, computer programming, chemistry, physics, you want to get into quantum computing, all this high-end math stuff, and music. And then the word thinkers, really good jobs for them is specialized retail, where you get very, you know about every phone in a store or every kind of printer. And you can help somebody pick out the perfect printer, and they'll appreciate your knowledge. There's been some big successes on selling cars. Very, very big successes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There was a guy at one of the events that Ben spoke at, and he was talking that like his fixation was ceiling fans. And I didn't even think about it. He could easily be a special salesman for ceiling fans. Know everything.
Or if it's my kind of money, he could fix fans.
Right.
Because we have a huge shortage right now of people to fix things like elevators.
Yeah.
And it goes back to taking skilled trades out of the schools. See, because kids like me, we're flunking algebra.
Yeah.
And then I've worked with shops full of people that can't do algebra, but they can build anything, and they're patenting equipment.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of mind. And that's what I'm talking about in this book, because I'm also very, very concerned about skill loss.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, does your book talk about all three types of learning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The visual thinking book talks about all three types of learning. It also presents the science behind it.
Wow.
There's a lot of good science. Some people say, well, that's just conjecture. Well, it's not. There's a lot of studies.
Yeah.
And a lot of educators are highly verbal. Well, they don't know anything about industry and factories. I spent 25 years in heavy construction.
Right.
I've been around stuff that the most teachers have never been around.
Right. Right.
And then we got to think about, you see these big fancy skyscrapers being advertised in New York, the fancy silver needle building.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I hope the elevator works. I hope the water pumps work and the AC works. And somebody has to keep all those mechanical systems in those buildings running.
Right.
That's not simple stuff.
Right. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. That's huge.
I love buildings. Like actually, I was on a podcast the other day. Somebody says, "Ben, do you like the Titanic and volcanoes?" He was perseverating on that thought.
Yeah, those were his stuck things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No, but that's so huge that the finding skill. Well, the skills are there, but training those skills and then applying those skills to a workplace is huge. Because Ben, when he talks at schools, we talk about the unemployment rate being around 80%, right?
Yeah.
For people on the spectrum, and that can be so hard because the finding that fit can be a challenge.
Well, where it's been, you get some kids that really get addicted to video games.
Sure.
And they're my kind of mind. And I wish they were getting wonderful video game industry jobs, but they're not.
Yeah.
If they were getting wonderful video game industry jobs, I wouldn't criticize it. But the thing that can wean them off the video games is car mechanics. I've talked with 5 or 6 parents with young adults, and the young adult found that car mechanics and motors were more interesting than video games. And they ended up with jobs fixing trains, doing oil changes on all different kinds of cars, building classic cars, things that turned into real jobs and jobs that they really would like.
And
this is why it's so bad that schools took out so many of the hands-on classes.
Right.
If you have the child that can't do algebra, and that's me, that's the kid that's going to excel at building things or art or photography or working with animals.
Right. I want to come back to this because the video games topic I'm very interested to talk more about. But one person asked a question. Is there a link for your book? So where can people buy it?
Okay. You can buy it at your local bookstore. Amazon has it. You can just go on Amazon and type in Temple Grandin Visual Thinking. Amazon's got a whole bunch of them.
Sweet.
That's maybe the easiest way to buy it.
Awesome.
Or you can support your local bookstore and get it there.
Sweet.
So you can, it's easy to pick up online. It also is available in audiobook.
Oh, great.
And
Perfect.
I'm finding that about 1/3 of my sales right now for all my books are audiobook.
Yeah.
That is getting very, very popular.
Yeah, it really is. I'm a huge advocate for audiobooks as a dyslexic reader.
He said and she said.
Yeah, Ben teases me because I'll listen to him in the car and he's like, "Oh, you're listening to your he said and she said," because that's what they usually say. Like, "Oh, he said this and then she said that."
Well, and I did for the
it.
visual thinking book. I read the introduction myself.
I love
that. We made
that.
a very innovative stand to put my papers on because they didn't want to hear this.
Oh, yeah.
And we just had a manuscript copy. We didn't actually have a bound copy of it. And they went and got this thing the foot pedal thing for a drum set. They had that.
Yeah.
And then we took a plastic sign for headphones and we made an easel out of the foot pedal thing for drum set and a plastic headphone sign.
I love that.
And made a great easel, and I took a picture of it.
I love that. That's amazing.
Because they didn't want me, and they had a drum set in there because in our studio at the university, they sometimes do bands in there.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. I learn auditorially much better than I do reading. And so I think I was looking recently. I've had Audible for maybe 5 years, and I've listened.
No, that's Amazon. That's Amazon, and you can pick it right up on Amazon Audible.
Sweet.
Just put in Temple Grandin Visual Thinking.
Perfect.
And it will come right up on Amazon.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that tonight for sure.
Yeah. And it's also in an ebook too.
Oh, great.
It's amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go back to the video game topic.
Okay, let's discuss that.
I'm just so interested. I play video games and I enjoy them, but I think I enjoy them because of the challenge they represent. And so I love the idea of taking maybe the thing that the individual is enjoying in that game. How can that then become a tangible skill, right?
Well, the thing that, kids get fixated on things. All right, let's take ceiling fans.
Sure.
That's a very common fixation. All right, let's learn about how they work. You can learn about how electricity turns the motor.
Yeah.
In other words, or the kid likes cars. Let's learn how they work. Let's read about cars. Let's do math problems with cars. When I was a little kid, I would draw the same horse head over and over and over again. Mother said, let's draw the saddle. Take that fixation and broaden it. Don't stamp out fixations. Broaden it. I can turn a ceiling fan into, well, how do they work?
Right.
You can calculate the wind velocity coming off a ceiling fan. You
Right.
see, I can take a ceiling fan and use it as a starting point for all kinds of lessons.
Right.
You invented the ceiling fan.
Yeah. No, that's
Something
huge.
to
That's
look up.
huge. Yeah, even in the video game example I'm thinking of, there's a client that I work with, and he loves the stories, right? So he loves the interactive aspect of a story. And so he would be really good at creating other stories. Like he'd be really good at like soundboarding and working through potential other stories just because he loves the worlds. Right. Yeah. That's amazing.
No, that's right.
Reminds me of Harvest Moon. I don't know if you've played that game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a farming game, Temple. You probably wouldn't like it because you like real farming.
Well, the thing is what it's fine to play video games, but it's not fine to play them 7 and 8 hours a day.
Right. Sure.
Where you're not doing anything else.
Yeah.
And you're not getting a job.
Right.
And I wish that some of these kids would get fabulous jobs in that industry.
Yeah.
But that's not the pattern I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's worked has been the car mechanics.
Yeah.
And they discover that that's super interesting, learning about how engines work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's definite like tangible skills that you can pull from it. It's something that I'm going to be brainstorming about tonight because I think about it all the time. Because I think about the idea that so many people enjoy video games. So there has to be something about it that's enjoyable.
Well, there's video games you can get to teach you how to drive a car.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Driving simulator games.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to be useful because when I learned to drive, I did 200 miles on dirt roads.
Right.
Because to solve the multitasking problem, what you've got to do is get the operation of the car, steering and the brakes and the gas into motor memory before you touch traffic.
Yeah.
So I recommend you go out in an open field, go on a big parking lot. That's where you start where there's nothing to hit.
Yep.
Now, maybe driving simulators could reduce some of that.
Sure.
Now, the best ones actually have a real car seat.
Yeah.
And then a flat screen TV in front, but the steering wheel and the pedals are real. The seat is real.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they use a similar thing to teach operators of those big excavating machines.
Oh,
I got to try it. And it's set up like a video game.
Yeah.
And I did really badly. I smacked the truck with the bucket and then saying, this is how much damage you just did to the equipment.
Yeah.
And I asked them, how much of the training can you do on this? It's basically a video game, but the seat and then the control handles are the real ones.
Yeah.
The pedals are real.
Yeah.
And they said that they can do about 60% of the training on that. And I only had about 5 minutes to try it. I never even had enough chance to even try it.
Yeah, sure.
But that was a video game type of thing.
Yeah.
And if that could help with driving, I'd be all for that.
Right.
Because if I hadn't learned to drive, there would have been no career in the cattle industry.
Sure.
It's that simple.
Sure. Yeah, we actually talked about that during the movie because, you driving, there's a bunch of scenes in the movie where you're portrayed driving.
I did. And I learned on 3 on the Tree on an old pickup with a really horrible clutch. And that truck lurched around the horse pasture when it first started.
I was going to say, that's even harder because you had to learn stick, right?
I had to learn, actually, it was 3 on the Tree, manual on the column.
Dang.
We call that 3 on the Tree.
Wow. Yeah, that's even more challenging.
I learned on.
Yeah. So, yeah,
and
Ben.
Then after that, I had a stick.
Yeah, Ben driving was a big piece for us as well. But we would say the same thing. We didn't have dirt roads, but we have big parking lots.
Yeah. Good.
And so
that's where you start.
Yep, that's where Ben was.
Parents, I see too many parents too overprotective. And I said, no, you start in the middle of a big parking lot. Let's find one that has no light poles.
Yep.
Because I did talk to one family where they cracked the car up into a light pole.
Sure.
Did a lot of damage to the car and
to
the light pole. And so let's find one where there's no light poles.
Right.
So there's literally nothing to hit. And that's where you start. And you go out there 6 o'clock in the morning when nobody's there.
Yep.
It's like the grocery store, like the old grocery store parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah. We said for a long time during Ben's presentations, we usually say I think it's in Pennsylvania, it's like 60 hours for your permit before you can go for your driving test. And Ben needed about 300 hours of practice.
No, the thing I tell parents, you are going to need a lot more practice. A lot more practice, because that's the only way to solve the multitasking. And then what we had is at my aunt's ranch, the mailbox was 3 miles away on a dirt road. So every day I went up and back to the mailbox, and Ann was with me.
Yeah.
To pick the mail up. So that was 36 miles a week.
Yeah.
And it took exactly 20 minutes, and it was just about the perfect amount of driving practice for 6 days a week.
Right.
And I racked up 200 miles at 36 miles a week before we did any traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's huge because then you're saying the multitasking piece, you're figuring out that part.
Well, you see, you've got to get to where doing that manual shift became automatic, where I did not have to think about it.
Yeah.
Tell them about Emily's farm, because she has a mailbox like that.
Yeah, she does. A friend of ours has a plot of land in Missouri, and she takes animals that have been abused and raises them. And so she's got a couple of donkeys, a couple of horses.
I don't think there's cows.
She doesn't have cows. No cattle.
No.
But she has a very similar setup where she has to drive to her mailbox. That's probably what Ben's thinking
that
of.
was the perfect place to learn driving.
Mm-hmm.
I learned the clutch out in the horse pasture.
Yeah.
And we did quite a bit of lurching around with that before we got on the dirt road to go to the mailbox. But it was just kind of the perfect amount of driving. It took exactly 20 minutes to go up and back to that mailbox.
Yeah.
And that was perfect. And we had to get the mail anyway.
Right.
So it didn't take that much time to do it.
Right. In the movie Temple, towards the end, actually, I think it really is at the end of the movie, but there's a scene where you're at a convention where they're talking about autism, and you kind of, start sharing your experiences.
Now,
did
that
that happen?
happened in the mid-'80s.
Okay.
And they had a little different venue than that. It actually was round tables, and I was the chairperson of one round table out of about 10 round tables on different subjects. And what ended up happening is all the tables turned around and listened to me.
That's amazing. I love that. We say all the time that like you are one of, if not the first well-known self-advocate. Because I think a lot of parents had been trying to advocate for children, but very few individuals themselves have been advocating.
Well, the other thing, we've got to be working more on learning the work skills.
Sure.
And this is where I see a lot of parents just have such a hard time letting go when I suggest that their child should run into the store and buy something.
Sure.
By themselves.
Right. Yeah, you start, and like I said, you start small. You start with something tangible.
No, I'm talking about you're buying gas. I tell parents, okay, you're pumping gas. While you're pumping gas, give the kid a $5 bill and have him run in and get a jug of milk.
Right. I'm
talking about stuff like that. You're right there. You can see into the shop.
Right. Yeah. And then you have to throw away to the social anxiety. I think that's a big killer these days. It's people worry about what other people are going to think. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Who cares what other people think? Right. You can't let the concerns on other people's opinions determine whether or not you're going to let your child be successful.
Right. Well, I'm seeing too where they just literally can't let go. And and where I'm seeing is we're doing a better job with the little kids. That's where I think we're doing a much better job. But getting the big teenage kids out doing things. And it needs to start with volunteer jobs when they're 11, where somebody outside the family is the boss.
Yeah.
The other thing that was done in the 50s is social skills were taught in a much more structured manner.
Sure.
And I call it teachable moments.
Yeah.
So let's just say I take this cup and I stir my drink with my finger.
Yeah.
Mother didn't scream no. She'd say, use the spoon. She'd give the instruction instead of screaming no.
Yeah.
And another thing that all the kids had to do in the 50s is when you were 7 or 8, and the parents had a party, you had to put on your good clothes and be little hosts and hostesses for the guests. Greet them, take their coats, serve the snacks. Every family did that. That was a 50s thing. That cost nothing to do.
Right. Yeah.
These are simple things to do. Have a sit-down meal and learn how to take turns talking. Another thing I was taught was taking turns at games.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's another very important skill.
That's
huge. Are you
huge.
saying they wanted to talk about video games some more?
No, you're fine. We did have a question, though, which actually is a question that I wanted to ask from Nick and Amanda. They said, do you still have your squeeze machine?
Yeah, I have it. It broke about 10 years ago. I never got around to fixing it. But one of the things the squeeze machine did is I could control it. And so then I got to where I could tolerate people hugging me.
Sure.
Sure. But the squeeze machine, I could control it very precisely. So I think some of the things to help on some of the desensitizing is control. Now, there's no way I'm going to wear wool against my skin. That's not going to happen.
Sure.
But let's take the kid to shopping at the store, and they can pick out some clothes that are soft. The other thing I'd recommend, and I still do this with everything that goes against the skin, is washed before I wear it. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Underwear maybe washed twice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then pants sometimes before they get soft enough so they don't itch on a plane.
Yeah.
I wash them like 2 or 3 times.
Sure.
These
No,
again,
that's amazing.
Things that you can do. And like this shirt, I have a T-shirt on under it.
Yeah.
And give the kid some choice. You can go feel the different pants and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
that's a great thing.
And I have found that certain pants are made out of cheap cotton that's scratchy.
Yeah. You're so right. I think I've experienced a lot of parents who, I'll have one that I'm thinking of specifically, but they'll buy clothes and then the child will do something where they'll tear them or whatever, but I don't think they've ever taken the child to the store.
Well, they
and
take the kid into the store,
right.
and there's some choices.
Right.
No, you're not going to let them buy $100 shirt or something crazy.
Right. Sure.
But take them into Walmart. Actually, I've found for pants, Walmart's been really good. Their stuff has lasted.
Yeah.
Where I've bought things at trendier shops that very quickly wore out, and it was junk.
Sure.
But I have to find pants that don't itch. I just want plain black pants. I've been very pleased with Walmart, but they do have some different things there, and they've had some things in there etched.
Yeah.
And then I go up before I even try them on. I feel them.
I love
into the store where they can feel it, and
right.
and then I would recommend washing them before they wear them.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I have a question. Do you like thrift stores, Temple?
Ooh.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things at thrift stores.
Yeah.
Lots of good things. But I have very specific black pants I want.
Yeah.
And I just found for me, I've been very satisfied with Walmart's pants.
Yeah.
And then Western shirts, I've just been collecting those over the years.
I love it.
I love it too.
And
I love that.
Getting them from all different kinds of places. Some are gifts. This was a gift from Cheryl.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's 2 good questions in the comments. One from David Fox. He said...
From the IU. He's a great guy.
Oh, from the IU? Cool. Yeah. He says, Dr. Grandin, do you think that livestock care is at an acceptable level in the U.S., or do we still have a long way to go?
Well, livestock care's gotten better. Cattle handling has definitely gotten better. 70s was absolutely awful. You get more and more people doing it right. There was a big survey that my former student just did on 76 ranches. About 66%, 70% of producers are doing a good job. 25 years ago, it would be worse than that. And there were a few producers that were doing some bad, rough things they should not have been doing.
Sure.
So it's gradually getting better.
Yeah. That's good.
I'll read the next question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Your relationship with your mom, was it as the movie portrayed? Thank you.
Well, she always had a very good sense of the kind of things I could tolerate, giving me choices, always pushing me, stretching me. And when I would just draw the same horse head over and over again, she stretched it and she said, well, let's do some other media besides pencil. Let's do watercolor. She would broaden it. She had a very good sense. And when it got time to go to my aunt's ranch, and if I hadn't gone to my aunt's ranch, I wouldn't have gotten in the cattle industry. And she said, you have a choice. You can go for a week, and if you come home and you hate it, or you can go for all summer. I got out there and loved it. Not going wasn't an option.
Yeah. I love that.
See, that's the thing. She had a very good sense of how to stretch me.
Yeah.
And I see too many parents today where they just can't let go. One 12-year-old came up to me at the airport, and her mom, they wanted to get a picture. I found out the 12-year-old girl had never shopped. I handed her a $5 bill, and I said, go in that store across the hall and buy something. And she went and got a drink and brought it back to me.
There you go. Yeah. We say all the time, I call it the gray area, but you have to find that for each child where you're pushing enough to encourage growth, right? Progress. But also knowing what that cliff of too challenging
you don't want
is.
to push totally. You're stretching, but you're not chucking him in the deep end of the pool.
Right. Exactly.
Well, here's an example that a family just figured out with the local McDonald's. and their daughter would run the cash register most of the time. But when the store got super busy, they knew she couldn't handle the cash register, so they'd put her on cleaning tables. Now, that's just a very simple little thing, and I just heard about this just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Which made that job at McDonald's work.
Right.
And then another one where it failed, and this is very sad. This was a boy that was selling video games at Walmart. That would be a perfect job. And he got fired for being aggressive with customers. Well, he probably was yakking customers' heads off about video games.
Right.
This is where a little bit of coaching about how to approach a customer. You walk up and ask if they want to find out about the latest game. And if they don't engage, you back off.
Right.
If somebody had just coached him a little bit,
right,
he wouldn't have lost that job.
Right.
I mean, that would be almost like a dream job.
Right.
And he lost it. And then that's very sad. That didn't need to be lost.
Right.
Just a little bit of coaching would have prevented that.
Right. Right. Oh, that's so true. Yeah. That's so true. You have a question from Dad? Do you want to read that one?
Question from Dad. I would wear my shoes and okay.
Yeah, I'll read it. So it's a little small. But he's basically said the different sensory for different kids. So Ben never had sensory issues. But we talk about it all the time, the hyper versus hypo.
It's very, very variable, the sensory things.
Yeah, sure.
It's very, very variable. And now some individuals are sensitive to LED light flicker.
Sure.
And one of the ways you can tell if the LED lights flicker is to take pictures in slow motion video.
Yeah.
Cinematic.
Yeah.
And for some individuals, that's something that would need to be gotten rid of in a classroom, for example.
Sure.
I'm always trying to figure out really practical, sensible things that people can do.
Yeah,
that will work.
Sure.
The other thing that sometimes works is you have dyslexics that see the print jiggle on the page. Try different colored pastel papers. Like you've got a light yellow wall there. That might work for somebody. Now that T-shirt, that's a little bit too dark blue.
Sure.
Try a paler pastel blue, a paler light gray.
Yeah.
Try different fonts and backgrounds on the computer.
Yeah.
These are simple things that sometimes are helpful, and the individual has to choose the colors that are right for them. They have to choose it.
Sure. Yeah.
I was gonna.
Yeah, I was say real quick, Temple. Do you like roller coasters? That's Ben's favorite thing, or do you not like?
Well,
those?
no, I don't.
Yeah.
I get. No, I'm afraid of heights now. I used to climb up feed mills just to get pictures, and I wouldn't be caught dead on the feed mill now. No, I think I like to watch them. I like to read about them.
I love it.
I like rides more like the Roundup and things like that.
I love that.
It's now called anti-gravity now.
I love that.
We have a comment from.
Yeah, real quick. I wanted to do one thing for our mom.
Yeah.
Because our mom wrote a book.
Okay.
And so she wrote this about Ben, about raising Ben, what that was like. And so this is on our website, benergy1.com, but it's all about kind of that process. We had that question about, the relationship with your mom. And we're very thankful for our relationship with our mom.
Yeah.
And she was very good at that as well, Temple, I think, pushing.
Well, it's sort of I call it stretching.
Yeah.
It's just the right amount of pushing.
Right.
You don't chuck them in the deep end of the pool. You don't chuck them into a sensory overload.
Right.
I want to avoid chaotic jobs like takeout window.
Yeah.
That's an example of a job I'd like to avoid.
Right.
I don't want to set them up for failure.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. It's crazy. We only have 5 minutes left, and I like to usually give the last couple minutes to the guests. Did you have one question you want to ask, Ben?
Okay.
Have any more questions for Temple? I know we're running out of time. You can send me an email to Raise Typical, and Temple, if there's more questions, we'll email them to you. Right? Is that okay, Dan?
Yeah, we can email them, but we'll stick with what time we have now. And we usually try to Temple give the last 5 minutes to our guest. So if there's anything that you feel that you really would like to talk about or share, we'd love to listen.
I want to help people on the spectrum get out and get great jobs and great careers that they're really going to like, and figure out where their strengths are. This is one of the reasons why I think taking hands-on classes out of the schools was so bad, is how can you tell if you like musical instruments if you never get to play them?
Yeah.
I had a little flute. I never could figure out how to play it, but at least I was exposed to it.
Right.
I was exposed to tools. I really liked building things. Art was another thing I was exposed to, and I really liked doing that. I liked sewing when I was a child. You're not going to know that you like these things unless you get exposed to it. And these are things that can turn into career options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's huge. The
like
chance to try new things. We did that, right, Ben?
Yeah, I actually tried a different couple of jobs. I didn't like.
Yeah, but I was even thinking hobbies too. We talked about this with you one time. We just tried a bunch of new hobbies because we're like, how do we know if you like them or not? Right?
Yeah, we tried new foods.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to get the same foods over and over.
Mhm.
I have a question about the food. Speaking of which, is there a food that you liked and had to do the same routine? It had to be the same product. When I was a kid.
I could have gotten into a grilled cheese sandwich habit if that'd been allowed.
Mm.
And I was allowed to have that on Saturday, but other times I pretty much had to eat what was on the table. And we never let the picky eating get started. Now, the one thing I absolutely hate is slimy egg white.
Oh.
And they never eat that. It's okay for the kid to have 3 or 4 things they just despise. But I think some of this, you've got where the kids got, eating French fries and some other limited ice cream, some crazy thing like that. And they're ending up getting vitamin deficiency diseases because their diet's so restricted.
Yeah.
One of the ways to help kids to eat different things is to get involved with food prep. Out in the kitchen, we can play with food. You can experiment with it. In the dining room, we have manners. In the kitchen, we can play with food. And sometimes that can be helpful. And then there can be a few things like raw egg white. Oh,
yeah.
There can be a few things like that we're not going to eat. And I'd always have my fried eggs over hard.
Yep.
And because I can't stand slimy.
Yep.
Other stuff I was expected to eat, and I did.
Yeah, sure. No, that's good. I think you're so right about having like the couple of things that are just hard nose. It's never going to happen.
Raw egg white, yuck.
Yep.
I was never made to eat that.
Yep. Yeah.
Real slimy stuff. But I'm seeing kids on ridiculously restricted diets. They need to be taking at least a multiple vitamin. Because there have been some horrible cases where a kid got scurvy. That's vitamin C.
Yeah. Wow.
Because they had such a deficient diet.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a good question. One teacher, it sounds like, says she has a student who loves trains. Do you have any suggestions for how she can expand that to other areas?
There's lots of ways to expand cars, planes, and trains. Read about the history of the railroad. Read about how trains work. Who invented trains? Do math with trains. If a train is going this mile, how quickly, where do trains go in the U.S.? Study great train stations in the 1800s.
Yeah.
There's some fabulous ones. I can just think of all kinds of ways to broaden transportation. And those are very common interests. Planes, cars, and trains are real common things that kids like. And some of it's sensory. They like watching how they move, but there's all kinds of science and history and people you can study. Like interesting things like the railroads invented time zones.
Wow.
Invented by the railroads.
Wow.
You see, these are just interesting things where it's connected to a train.
Yeah.
I love it when kids get addicted to transportation because there's so many ways I can expand that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I do have one train fun fact. In Brazil, they produce so much coffee beans that the steam engines actually used to run on coffee beans. They would burn their excess beans, so it always smelled like coffee in Brazil.
Really?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well that's interesting. But transportation has all kinds of interesting things
That's
you
huge.
can expand it on.
I love airplanes, and I love
No, I was saying that's
trains were my thing growing up. Thomas the Tank
The same
Engine.
thing with airplanes. You can expand that. I used to be terrified of airplanes because I was in a very scary emergency landing when I was in high school. And the way I got over it is I got to fly in the cockpit in a jump seat on a large airplane taking heifers to Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Make aviation interesting.
Wow.
You make something interesting, it's less scary. And one mom did that with hand dryers in the bathrooms. They went and looked at the websites for all the companies that make all those toilet flushers and those hand dryers.
Wow.
And just learning more about how they worked also made them less scary.
Wow. That's amazing. That's honestly, Temple, that's such a great note to leave it on. Is to the idea of expanding. Expanding.
Don't stomp it out. Expand.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's something like transportation.
Yeah.
But even if it's something like fans,
Yeah.
I can still expand it. Now, what are other fan-like things? Propellers on airplanes.
Right.
They're fan-like things, and they make planes go.
Yeah.
Okay, you see how I'm going to start out with the ceiling fan.
Right.
And then this movie, Casablanca.
Yeah.
There's a fan company that's called Casablanca.
Right.
Love it.
Exactly.
As a visual thinker, I'm an associative thinker.
Right. Right. I love that. So Temple, give us the name of your new book one more time.
Expand that fan interest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about expanding for sure. Give us the name of your book one more time, Temple.
The name of my book right here is Visual Thinking.
Perfect.
Yes.
The Hidden Gifts of People Who Think in Pictures, Patterns, and Abstractions.
Awesome.
It came out in October.
Perfect.
It made the New York Times bestseller list. It discusses the different kinds of thinking. The object visualizers like me who think in pictures, the way the movie shows, the mathematicians who think in patterns, the visual spatials, and then the word thinkers.
I love that. I love that. Temple, thank you so much for your time.
Oh my
we
gosh,
really appreciate you being here.
So much fun. I had a blast. Honestly, it was great talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Of course.
Okay.
All right, we'll log out now, Temple. Thank you.
I'm gonna sign out. I'm gonna press the red X right now.
All right.
And I've had a really good time on the show, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That was a great show.
That was a great show, Ben. That was really good. Everyone for watching, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just pulling this up. I'm gonna hide this real quick.
We'll keep you informed. In the next couple
we will
weeks.
keep you informed with who our next guest is. But we just want to give a great shout out to Temple. Honestly, an amazing guest for the show.
This was amazing.
Thank you so much for all your questions. I know we probably missed a couple. I was looking really only on Facebook. If there was some on YouTube, I think there was a couple that we missed. But yeah, we can send those to Temple.
Yeah.
But thank you for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. Keep an eye on our website. We'll let you know who's up next and what our future plans are for Razed Typical.
Yeah.
But Ben's been in and out of a lot of schools doing presentations.
Yeah.
We're going out to South Carolina next week.
Oh yeah, and then I'm hoping the Eagles go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's Ben's hope.
And I'm hoping
what
Mr. Beast.
Ben's current goal is to talk to a YouTuber to get to the Super Bowl. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, Mr. Beast. I hope you can hear me. It's okay. Mr. Let me just say this. Buy my mom's book. It's not New York Best Time Seller yet, but Temple's is. But shout out to Temple Grandin. But I'm hoping this is going to be New York Best Time Seller, and I will bring this to the Super Bowl if that happens. And I'm going to get everybody to buy it. But everybody, thank you. Go Eagles with me entering on the Eagles chant. E-A-G-L-E-S. Eagles. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
Fly.
All right. We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye.